You know, sometimes it's better to let go of a player too early rather than too late. And well, taking a look across the NFL landscape, there are plenty of teams that need to let go of some pricey veterans or risk suffering the consequences. In the early stages of the 2024 league new year, we saw plenty of household names get cut by their clubs in cap-saving moves. This included former superstars such as Russell Wilson, David Bakhtiari, Mike Williams, Michael Thomas, and Tre'Davious White. The regular season is still 4 months away, however, so there is still plenty of time for even more big-name players to hit the open market. So with that said, let's dive into the 10 biggest NFL names that are most likely to still get cut between now and week 1.
This part of the offseason is always fun just because you kind of get a chance to be back around the guys.
Marshon Latimore. At the start of the 2021 season, the New Orleans Saints handed All-Pro cornerback Marshon Latimore a 5-year contract extension worth $97.6 million. The deal made perfect sense at the time. The Saints were coming off a 4th straight NFC South Division title and were still viewed as a playoff contender. But after 3 straight non-postseason appearances, it's gut-check time in New Orleans. According to OverTheCap.com, cutting Latimore this offseason would bring a $22.648 million dead money charge. But also consider this. They'd save $20.758 million against the cap in 2025 and an additional $21.258 million for 2026. From a long-term perspective, cutting Latimore is the right move for a team that has to perform miraculous salary cap gymnastics every single offseason. And if you're part of the Saints should be trying to win now club, well, they just used a 2nd-round pick on former Alabama star Kool-Aid McKinstry, and the Saints D has been a top 10 unit in each of the last 2 years, even though Latimore has played a combined 17 games during that period. Not saying that the Saints should release Latimore, we're just saying don't be overly surprised if they decide to pull the cord now. This team has to start cutting bait with high-salaried players, and Latimore's release would provide much-needed breathing room for the 2025 and 2026 payrolls. Miles Sanders. After a career year with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022, Sanders signed a 4-year deal with the Carolina Panthers worth $25.4 million. Carolina's goal was to bolster the weaponry around pending 1st overall pick Bryce Young, so of course it made sense to add a star running back in the midst of his prime on a reasonable long-term deal. Or at least they thought. Sanders had an awful first year with Carolina, recording only 432 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. You can blame the Panthers' run blocking all you want, but then why did Chuba Hubbard replace Sanders as the RB1 and go off for 902 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns? Carolina used a 2nd-round pick on Texas Longhorns running back Jonathan Brooks, regarded as the best RB prospect of the 2025 class. They also signed former Seattle Seahawks star Rashad Penny to bolster the depth at running back. So either Hubbard or Brooks will be RB1 in 2024, with the other being the RB2. If you're Carolina, I mean, you may as well cut your losses and just release Sanders, knowing that you aren't going to get much use out of him. Cutting Sanders would carry a dead money charge of $7.495 million, but they'd also clear up $6.7 million and $5.5 million in cap space for 2025 and 2026 respectively. So yeah, I'd say it's worth pulling the cord now. Kenny Clark. Clark has been a mainstay on the Green Bay Packers defensive line since he arrived as rookie back in 2016. Like a fine wine, Clark has only gotten better with age, earning his 3rd Pro Bowl nod last season after tallying a career-high 7.5 sacks. The Packers would love to keep Clark in an ideal world, but the salary cap means an ideal world doesn't exist in the NFL. The pack was loaded with playmakers in the front 7, namely Preston Smith, Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Quay Walker, and rookie Edgerrin Cooper. Green Bay needs to make room for its youngsters, Wyatt especially, after spending his first 2 years in a rotational role. Releasing Clark would save the Packers a whopping $17 million in cap space for 2024, allowing GM Brian Gutekunst to make another big move or two that would address other positions of need. Clark is also scheduled to become a free agent after the 2024 season, and the Packers are unlikely to extend him long-term. Yes, the Packers are a better team with Clark on the field, but the NFL is a business, and Green Bay might find it tough to pass on the opportunity to clear $17 million by releasing this pricey veteran. Cam Robinson. In the 2022 offseason, the Jacksonville Jaguars handed Robinson a 3-year contract extension worth $54 million. Though Robinson has been a long-time mainstay on the Jags O-line, it is rather obvious that he's on borrowed time now in Duval County. Jacksonville used their 2023 first-round pick on Anton Harrison. In 2021 second-round pick Walker Little looks ready for his starting role after receiving increased playing time last year. And oftentimes, a player release has more to do about the money than the player himself. Look, Robinson is a good offensive tackle, just not a great one. And if Jacksonville were to cut him, they would be saving a whopping $17.279 million against the cap. Heck, Robinson himself actually might be keen to accept a release, since that would allow him to actually be a starting tackle somewhere else. Cadarius Tony. There are two ways to look at Cadarius Tony's run with the Kansas City Chiefs so far. Do you look at him as the two-time Super Bowl champion who is also the unsung hero in their Super Bowl 57 victory against the Eagles? Or do you view him as the guy who struggled with drops all of last year, making him the main source of frustration in KC? In some ways, it's miraculous that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl again with that wide receiver core. But GM Brett Veach ensured that Patrick Mahomes won't have to deal with such issues again by signing Marquise Hollywood Brown and drafting Texas speedster Xavier Worthy. Since Tony is on his rookie contract, releasing him would only cost KC $2.530 million in dead money anyhow. So to us, that seems like a way better deal than trying again to unlock the potential of the former New York Giants first-round pick. Look, Tony just hasn't cut it at the NFL yet, but if the Chiefs do release him, several clubs will likely want to take a flyer on the speedster who is yet to put it all together. That is, of course, if KC decides to cut bait now. Bailey Zappy. In a surprise move, the New England Patriots waived Zappy at the start of the 2023 season. He was brought back soon after, however, and wound up replacing Mac Jones as the starting QB mid-season. Zappy saw 10 game appearances in 2023. He relieved Jones in 4 of them and was the starter for the other 6, throwing for 6 touchdowns against 9 interceptions on a very lousy Patriots squad. The Patriots wound up sending Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and new GM Elliott Wolf added not 1, but 3 new QBs this offseason. The Pats used the 3rd overall pick on North Carolina quarterback Drake May. Even if he's not ready, they brought back old friend and journeyman Jacoby Brissett on a 1-year deal to be the bridge QB. New England also used a 6th-round pick on Tennessee star Joe Milton III. The Pats do not need 4 quarterbacks, so of course Zappy has to be the odd man out over Brissett and the other 2 rookies. Zappy had brief moments of brilliance in his rookie 2022 season while Jones was injured, so heck, there might be some value if he hits the open market. And for Zappy's sake, that's the best case scenario at this stage. Robert Woods. The Houston Texans have a pretty good problem here. Too many offensive weapons, but only one football for CJ Stroud to distribute the ball to. Last year, Houston signed 2-time 1,000-yard wide receiver Robert Woods to a 2-year deal worth $15.25 million. The former Los Angeles Rams star struggled to find targets behind Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz, however. And he finished with just 40 receptions for 426 yards and a touchdown. That was the worst statistical season of Woods' career. And now that the Texans have added superstar Stephon Diggs via trade with the Buffalo Bills, why should they bother keeping Woods and his hefty $9.7 million cap hit on the books for 2024? Releasing Woods would carry a $4.75 million dead money charge, but also open up $4.955 million in cap space. Truth be told, it only makes sense for the Texans to release Woods instead of keeping him on the roster for another year, especially at his salary. Tamm Hill. The Swiss Army knife has been one of football's most intriguing and exciting players to watch since he broke into the league as a 27-year-old rookie back in 2017. Hill has done it all as a runner, receiver, and occasional quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He's 7-2 as a starting QB, but has been especially dangerous as a runner, racking up 2,159 rushing yards and 27 rushing scores. But releasing Hill would save the cap-strapped Saints $8.5 million. For a team that is always finding itself tens of millions of dollars over the cap, that may be a tough sum of potential savings to pass on. The Saints are retooling their offense around new OC Clint Kubiak. Chris Olave, Jawan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, and Jamal Williams are all nice set of weapons for Derek Carr. So Hill's role could very well reduce with Pete Carmichael no longer calling that offense. And if the Saints were to release Hill, they'd have no shortage of potential suitors. Hey, a potential reunion with Sean Payton in Denver, anyone? James Bradberry. To be honest, it's rather surprising that the Eagles haven't cut nor traded Bradberry, given A, his awful 2023 season, and B, the fact that they've loaded up on stud defensive backs. After earning a second-team All-Pro nod in 2022, and after helping the Eagles to a Super Bowl 57 appearance, Bradberry signed a 3-year contract extension worth $38 million. Bradberry went from hero to, well, almost zero in 2023. Per Pro Football Reference, he allowed 740 passing yards in coverage and yielded a ridiculous 114.3 opposing passer rating when targeted. As well, Pro Football Focus gave Bradberry a lackluster 56.6 grade for the season. Eagles GM Howie Roseman brought back old friend CJ Gardner-Johnson in free agency to bolster the secondary. And he somehow came away with 2 of the top 3 cornerback prospects, Toledo's Quinion Mitchell and Iowa's Cooper DeJean on draft weekend. Cutting Bradberry wouldn't save Philly any money against the salary cap this year, but the dead money charge would be minimal at $4.305 million, with $4.724 million in cap savings on the books for 2025. So, yeah, it wouldn't at all be a shock if the Eagles decided to cut the former Pro Bowler as a part of their massive shakeup in the secondary. Trayon Burks. The Tennessee Titans baffled everyone when they traded superstar wideout A.J. Brown to the Eagles at the 2022 NFL Draft. Then GM John Robinson thought that he could replace Brown by using the number 18 pick on Arkansas product Trayon Burks. Unfortunately, various injuries have limited Burks to 22 games over his first 2 NFL campaigns. Burks has not been a difference maker whatsoever, with only 49 receptions for 665 yards and 1 touchdown during that period. To date, Burks has had just 1 100-yard game. He's gone north of 70 yards only twice, too. Well, Titans GM Rand Carthen and new head coach Brian Callahan weren't here when the Titans drafted Burks. Speaking of Carthen, he just signed star wide receiver Calvin Ridley in free agency, giving Will Levis another weapon to accommodate DeAndre Hopkins before adding another former 1,000-yard receiver in Tyler Boyd. So Burks is now the number 4 receiver at best on Tennessee's depth chart. And we haven't even mentioned running back Tony Pollard. If Carthen and Callahan don't view Burks as a fit in the offense, why keep him around? His role will obviously be minimal at best, and the Titans may find kindness in their hearts to give Burks a much-needed fresh start. But hey, which other big NFL names are most likely to get cut this offseason? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.